Hello everybody, my name is Cameron Earl, and welcome back to another video. Today, I am here with my definitive 2025 Disney Villainous difficulty rating because or should I call it the difficulty rating of March, because my opinions always change. But I'm pretty confident that these opinions will stay the same because I actually used a ranking engine for this on PubMeeple's ranking engine. Look it up. You enter all the characters you want to rank, and then it gives you 50-50 choices, or like, you choose one over the other, kind of like would you rather, and then it ranks them for you. And that's what I used for this. Now, how I'm ranking these guys is the first villain I'm going to start this video with will be the easiest to win with, in my opinion, and the last villain I talk about will be the most difficult villain to win with, in my opinion. Also, I'm doing this based on 2-player games, 1v1s, because when you play Villainous, if you play with a lot of players, or if you are used to playing 1v1s, if you play like a 5 or 6 player game, you're going to realize like the difference between which villains actually win those games. Some villains do really good in 6-player games, some villains do really bad in 6-player games because it gives you more opportunities to be faded. But yeah, we're ranking these based off 1v1 games. So yeah, we're just going to get started here. So starting off with the easiest villain on my list, which I don't think anybody would really disagree with, and that is Dr. Facilier from Princess and the Frog, from the second set, Wicked to the Core, and man, did Villainous kill it with its second set, let me tell you. All 3 of the villains in that set I love to play. So Dr. Facilier's goal is pretty simple. Now, if you let Dr. Facilier start with 3 coins, say, and he goes 5th or 6th in a 5 or 6 player game, he can win in 2 turns. He could play a Talisman and rule New Orleans, and if nobody fates him, he can go to the Emporium, get the Cards Will Tell, and it's over. So Dr. Facilier can win, one of the quickest characters who could win a game, but that would never happen. Ever. It shouldn't. But yeah, he pretty much only has to play 3 specific cards to win. He has to play the Talisman, which is an item, Rule New Orleans, which is an effect, and the Cards Will Tell while he is at the Voodoo Emporium, which is his starting location, which is also an effect. However, though Rule New Orleans and Talisman may both respectively be 3 power themselves, Dr. Facilier actually has no power struggle at all. Where the real struggle comes is with his Fortune Pile, which is a mechanic strictly unique to Dr. Facilier, where the Fate deck and him as well can put cards in the Fortune Pile, and if the card has a Fortune ability, which it'll say Fortune in bold white on the card, if you would draw that out of there with the Cards Will Tell effect card at the Emporium, then you would resolve that effect. So mostly what players are going to be trying to do to you is building up your Fortune Pile as much as possible. Cards like Almost There and Charlotte, maybe even making you spend some little extra money with Big Daddy LaBeouf, putting New Orleans back into your deck if it's already in your Fortune Pile. What my strategy is for Dr. Facilier is always try to have the Cane at the Emporium, so you could use the play card action at the Parade to play the Talisman and the Cards Will Tell at the same time. Experienced players will see this coming, and they'll try to place Juju to put it into your Fortune Pile. But if a better card comes out during a Fate, a better card than Juju, players will often choose that card. I'd say the biggest threats in his deck are definitely Almost There and Tiana. And Ray, because Ray just has the ability of letting you play both Fate cards. But overall, I'd say Dr. Facilier is a really fun, really easy character to win with. He does have a kind of hard learning curve because a lot of beginners don't understand the Fortune Pile. I know I didn't. A lot of people I tried to teach the game didn't. I tell them, I'm like, Dr. Facilier is really easy to win with, but he's not that great easy to understand. And our next villain, so that's Dr. Facilier at number 28. The next villain we're talking about here is in the same boat, easy to win with, difficult to learn. And that is Ratigan from the 3rd Villainous set, Evil Comes Prepared. Another set that they killed it with, besides one villain who's pretty garbage. So Ratigan is the only villain in the game who can win in 2 ways, actually. So Radigan has a gold tile, which is unique to him. The original goal he starts the game with is to get the Robot Queen to the palace. However, the Robot Queen is 15 coins. Radigan, so a lot of people don't understand Radigan, is that you don't need, a lot of beginners specifically, is that you don't need 15 coins. You play every Gears card you get. You play the tools. The tools, to a lot of beginners, doesn't seem like a great card because it knocks all your item costs down by 1, but it costs 2 coins. That pays in dividends. A lot of people don't understand that the tools let you play the majority of the items in your deck for free, because most of them only cost 1. You're playing all your gears for free. That knocked the Robot Queen down by 3, so it kind of just stacks up along the way. So for a character with the character with the most expensive card in the game, you don't need that much money as Radigan. Also, always had the airship on you and the bell. Try to avoid playing the airship until you want to activate it to get the Robot Queen to Buckingham Palace, because you don't want that to get discarded with Sabotage. Worst cards of Radigan's deck, I would say Basil, but the thing is, if Basil discards the Robot Queen, that's where Radigan's second goal comes in. If Basil, who discards an item at his location whenever he's played there or moved, if Basil can discard the Robotic Queen, you actually have to flip over Radigan's gold tile, and the goal is now to defeat Basil, who is a strict strength hero. Now, Radigan has many allies, Ruffian's Fidget, but his most important one by far is Felicia, who is a 6 strength, you know, as much as Basil. Now, Basil could get some extra strength. He could also move around with Toby, but a lot of people won't be fading Jude that much after they get Basil out, because they'll think that, you know, the game should probably be pretty much over by the time Basil actually comes out, if they choose to play him. But I think actually the other worse, even more worse card than Basil in your deck is the Mouse Queen herself. And when the Mouse Queen is on your board, you cannot win. You cannot win. You literally can't if she's on your board, so you actually have to kill her. I mean, you have to kill Basil too, but that's if he discards the Queen. But I think the Mouse Queen definitely slows you down a lot more, because you're like, oh, now my goal is to defeat Basil. I'm fine with wasting the allies. But you might not want to waste the power and the time that you have to take out the Mouse Queen. I think that's what makes her a little bit worse than Basil. Alright, the next villain we're talking about, we're going back to Wicked to the core with the OG... Well, not the most OG villain here, but, you know, the Evil Queen. The original Karen. God. I used to hate playing this character so much, but over time, she's actually become one of my favorites. I just did a ranking of my least favorite to play, and Evil Queen's really high up there. So, these bottom 3 here are actually characters that you shouldn't really play as a beginner, because Evil Queen, I think, has the most difficult mechanic to understand in the game. Well, actually, you know what? Now King Candy's here, so I think King Candy's probably even worse. But, in that's the newest set, Evil Queen used to be the least beginner-friendly villain, in my opinion, because she is so complex, but you can win with her really quickly if you get lucky. She doesn't have much of a power struggle. So Evil Queen's goal is to defeat Snow White, but Evil Queen comes with a locked location, the Dwarf's Cottage, which is locked, and that's where Snow White will always be played. So to unlock that, Evil Queen has to play all 4 of the ingredients, which is a special card type unique to her. She'll have to play all 4 ingredients to unlock the Dwarf's Cottage, and she'll most likely have to play the Magic Mirror to find Snow White, unless somebody gets unlucky and reveals her during a fate with another card that they can't play, like the Pickaxe if there's no heroes or something. But most of the time, everybody will avoid playing Snow White on you. And then Evil Queen is still the only villain till this day. Out of 18 sets, it's going to be 18 sets this year with the 2 new ones they're coming out with, that we haven't been shown yet. But she's the only one so far who has had a special action on her board, which is the Brew Poison action, which is only at the laboratory, where you can convert your power, your money, into poison. And to kill a hero, she doesn't have a Vanquish action, she only has 1 ally, and she has to go there and play a card called Take a Bite, which she spends poison equal to that hero's strength to defeat them. So super, super unique way, and I think the brew poison action itself is the problem with beginners and Evil Queen. I think you should definitely not play Evil Queen as a beginner, but when you learn Villainous, you learn the ring around with Villainous, she's going to be super fun for you to play, at least for me. I don't know, I'm kind of losing my words here. I'm running out of stuff to say for her. But, yeah, I just always have a really good time playing the Evil Queen. I used to not, because I used to not understand her. But when I understand her, now she's like one of the quickest winners in the game. You play down a couple cards, boom, Dwarf's Cottage, brew all the poison. You see how big that stack of poison you have can get. And, stuff like that's just fun. All right, we are going to the original box. And I have the easiest villain in the OG, the Worst Takes It All box, as the Queen of Hearts. No, it's not Prince John, and when we get to Prince John, I will tell you why. So the Queen of Hearts is another villain who used to be my least favorite to play, but she's a little high up now. I still don't really like playing her, but, So the Queen of Hearts is the only villain who doesn't have a super villainous goal. She actually has... Her only goal is to play croquet. That's her only goal. So basically, the gist with the Queen of Hearts is she has to have at least one card guard, and I think she has like 8 card guards in her deck, which is almost a third of her deck is card guards. And she has to play at least one to each location, and then she has to activate it, flip the card sideways, and turn it into wickets. I don't know what wickets are, but And then she has to, when she has at least one at each location, she will play croquet, and she will take a shot. You reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. If the cost is less than the strength of all of your wickets combined, then you win. If it's equal to or more, I'm pretty sure, then you lose. Or you don't lose, but you have to take a shot again because you missed, like a loser. Oh yeah. I'm talking about worst cards Fate deck. Evil Queen's worst cards in her Fate deck, in case you're wondering about that. Definitely Doc and Happy. Happy is actually an underdog. Really, really bad card if he's played late game, because a lot of people are wanting to be playing heroes on you to boost up Snow White. But worst cards in Evil Queen's or Queen of Hearts Fate deck. If you combine Alice with Mome Wraiths, Alice could be really freaking bad. Also, the Dodo is pretty bad. The Cheshire Cat's bad, but he's counterable. I'd say he's more counterable. But yeah, it's mostly just Alice and the Dodo. But only if you play Mome Wraiths while Alice is out. But yeah, Evil Queen, just kind of play down 4 cards, activate them. She's the villain in the first set who really introduced the activate mechanic, who really tried to ram that into your skull while you're playing. And honestly, I say she's a pretty quick victory. Her Fate deck, I say, is one of the least brutal Fate decks in the game, but it can definitely slow her down if everything is played correctly and, mapped out correctly. Sticking with the green box, we're getting to our second easiest villain, and I have that as Maleficent. Now, Maleficent has one of the most boring goals of just needing to play 4 cards to win. Doesn't have to do anything weird or unique with them. Like Dr. Facilier, no. She literally just has to play down 4 cards from her deck. But the difficulty, I think, comes from this character with the fact that her Fate deck hurts. She has many cards in her Fate deck that will hurt her. Mainly King Stefan. King Stefan, if played correctly, can get rid of 2 curses. He's a 4-strength hero. Play him to Forest of Thorns. Get rid of the Forest of Thorns. And then he moves Maleficent to any location, move her to a location with green fire, get rid of that. Because Maleficent has 3 types of curses in her deck. She has to have at least 1 at each location. The 3 curses, there's Dreamless Sleep, which is heroes at Dreamless Sleep's location get -1 strength, but you discard the curse if an ally is played to that location. You have Forest of Thorns, which is the glass cannon of the curses. Which the Forest of Thorns... heroes cannot be played to that location. However, if a hero with a strength of 4 or more is played to that location, you lose. Well, heroes with a strength of 4 or more can be played to that location only. But if a hero is played to that location, it gets discarded, which she has plenty of 4-strength heroes. Merryweather's also really bad because you can't play curses to Merryweather's location. And then Green Fire is her worst one, which Green Fire, you play it I don't think heroes cannot be played to Green Fire's location, period. But Maleficent can't move to that location either. So that location is basically blocked off the map. Now you can like move the Raven there. The Raven is by far her best card, even though it's very pricey. Maleficent's cards are very pricey, and I know I'm making her sound really difficult, but trust me, she's not that bad. If you get the Raven out on your board early, you're going to have a pretty easy time. Because literally, oh, somebody spilled something. But literally, what he does is you move him to a location, and you do one action at that location. I'm pretty sure the Raven's name is Diablo. But, you know. But yeah, as Maleficent, play 4 cards, get faded a bunch, lose all your curses, rinse and repeat, until you eventually run out of resources in your fate deck, because trust me, they're going to be fading you a lot. Getting to our next, we're finally getting to the one that I think everybody thought was going to be the easiest in the green set, and that is Prince John. Now, the reason why I have Prince John above Queen of Hearts and Maleficent on the difficulty scale is mostly because of 2-player games. Prince John kind of needs heroes on his board to gain power fast, with curses like cards like Beautiful, Lovely, Taxes. Now, some heroes obviously are really bad for him. But he is the most beginner-friendly villain, with him just needing to gain 20 power to win. Which is... It'll take him a while. That's why I think he doesn't do as good as 2-player games. Now, if he has a lot of... Now, if I was talking 5 or 6-player games, hell, even 3, 4, or 5, 6-player games, Prince John would probably be lower. Because he has a lot more time to gain money. But in a 2-player game, Prince John just really doesn't have that time because, you know, it's you versus someone else. If they're getting close, you're going to have to take the time to fade them. And you're going to have to start ignoring money a little bit. Maybe it's just a skill issue on my part, because I like to play stuff with Prince John. I want to have this on my board for some extra security, just because I don't want to be going back and forth between the church and the jail, gaining 3 power, 2 power. The worst cards in his deck... the original version of Prince John, the worst card in his deck is definitely Robin Hood. He gains 1 less power from everything. And, like, King Richard's even worse. Like, you can't play effects if King Richard's on the board, so you definitely have to get rid of him, because most of Prince John's cards are effects. But, yeah, that's pretty much it for Prince John. Wish the Sheriff of Nottingham was better. And we're kind of sticking with Prince John for this one, because next I have... the much more fun version of Prince John, the Introduction to Evil version. Now, the change they made to Prince John's Introduction to Evil version is instead of just needing 20 power to win, he now has to have Robin Hood at the jail. But unfortunately, Robin Hood's really good ability was taken away, replaced with one that literally makes him do nothing, and given to Prince John. I'm pretty sure Robin Hood is just... When revealed, you must immediately play him to Sherwood Forest. When Robin Hood is defeated, you must move him to the jail. And then you have to gain 20 power. So Prince John has to find Robin Hood and defeat him, and also gain 20 power. Other than that, everything's the same. Pretty much everything's the same. But yeah, I think Introduction to Evil Prince John is a lot easier, but just a teensy-weensy little bit more difficult. Alright, next character I have on my list, we're going all the way to the bigger and badder set, the worst Villainous set, in my opinion, by a pretty big margin, and that is Madame Mim as the easiest in the set. So Madame Mim, you want to fight? You want to have a wizard's duel? Oh, yeah, wizard's duel. So Madame Mim, with her, 10 minutes of screen time in the film, you're playing the wizard's duel. Now, the problem with Madame Mim is that I hear a lot of people say she's busted, and while I do think she's definitely on the easier end to win with, that's why she's way down here, I can't really win with her that well. I don't get the whole strategy how people can have, all of their transformations out on the board at once. Maybe I'm just not fading enough, but Madame Mim has 2 fate decks. One of them you don't play from. One of them she plays from. She has the 7-card Transformations deck, which has Merlin's transformations in it, and she has a 8-card fate deck with all effects. She has no heroes. So Madame Mim has to defeat every one of Merlin's transformations with her own, which have to be used against specific transformations. Like Goat Merlin has to be defeated with Purple Dragon Mim, or Walrus Merlin has to be defeated with Elephant Mim. Um, so you're kind of trying to draw right transformations. Once she has cards like I'll Make the Rules, which just straight up kill a transformation that you can't find the card for. Um, but yeah, I don't really find Madame Mim that fun. I wish she was more fun, because I was excited for what they did with her, but at the same time, what they did with her Fate deck was not great. So they gave her, obviously, the 7-card transformation deck, all 7 of Merlin's transformations. Once you beat all of them, they're done. However, her Fate deck is pretty bad. So 4 of the 8 cards in her Fate deck is called Knowledge and Wisdom, which literally just moves a Merlin transformation, which, of course, you don't really want to play. Like, you want to play pretty much every other card besides that, because, you know, the way I play Madame Mim, I guess, is I play the transformation, the correct transformation, the turn I'm going to kill the Merlin with it. And I think that's the issue. But, you know, worst card in her Fate deck, definitely Germ Merlin or normal Merlin. Germ Merlin gets rid of a transformation on the board, and regular Merlin shuffles a Merlin transformation back into the deck. So you'll have to defeat it again. Yeah, other than that, Madame Mim's pretty freaking easy. Alright, so we're going back to Introduction to Evil with Maleficent, her Introduction to Evil version. And even though I thought normal Maleficent from the first set was pretty disappointing, I think they absolutely botched her with this version of Maleficent, where now I don't remember everything about her, because honestly, she's like the character I've played the least by far. I do not like this version of Maleficent at all. She has to have an ally at a location she plays a curse at now, which means she has to spend even more money, and that's pretty much her only difference. All of her Fate cards still do the same exact shit. She sucks. I'd say there's a pretty high difficulty spike. Now, I think Prince John's Introduction to Evil version was where we leave the easy villains, and we, like, the really easy villains, and then we go to the villains who are easy, but have a pretty big difficulty spike, who kind of win slower than others, and I think Maleficent falls perfectly into the bottom of that category. Her Fate deck's still just as brutal, but now she has to spend even more money. And talking about super brutal Fate decks and having to spend a lot of money, who's kind of boring and just repetitive, our next villain we're talking about is Gaston. Yes, we're going to despicable plots now. Oh, Gaston, what did they do to you? How did they even think of this? So Gaston has the absolutely thrilling and engaging goal of removing 8 tokens from his board. So on his board at each location, he has these obstacles. He has 2 obstacles at each location. That means there's 8 of them. And he has to play the same effect cards that cost a lot of money over and over and over and over and over and over again until he removes all 8 of them. Now, a lot of time it could be easy to do if they're not fading you right, but, you know, a lot of people are going to be fading you a lot because you could get through those tokens pretty fast. Of course, they could have done something way better with Gaston, but that's I already talked about that so many times, I'm not going to go into it, what they could have done. But, yeah, Gaston, just remove 8 tokens from your board and you win. However, Gaston has, I think, the biggest power struggle of any of these villains. I think he definitely has the biggest power struggle of all of these villains. Because he doesn't have a game. All of his cards are super expensive. Like, he seriously has to pay 4 power just to put +2 strength on an ally he has. But he doesn't have a game 3 power action, which sucks. Worst cards in his deck, definitely It Is You and Belle. Because that's another problem with him. Like, you can't even win if Belle's on your board. Like, doesn't he want the girl? Isn't that his whole thing? But you know what? I'm not going to get into it. Alright. We are now going to Sugar and Spite with Shere Khan. A villain I didn't expect to be this low on the list, but now I think about it, Shere Khan can win really fast. He's the newest villain and the newest one who can win in like 2 turns if he draws the right card. I seriously won in 2 turns with him before because I drew the right card, got enough power, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to play this, and then fuck Mowgli. There we go. He's dead. Fuck that guy. But, yeah. So, Prince John has to defeat Mowgli. obviously. That's his whole thing. He wants to get the man cub out. However, Prince John introduces the mechanic of fire tokens, which these fire tokens will block an action, so Prince John can't use it, and Prince John is going to have to take specific measures to get rid of those. Like, he has these monkey cards, and the monkeys, you pay power equal to the number of fire tokens at their location, remove the fire, and remove the monkeys. They consume the fire, and then they die. You have some little extra allies, like, King Louis. He has a unique ally in Caw, which Caw can do stuff. I don't know, it's been a minute since I played Shere Khan, he's still kind of new. And then you have Caw's eyes and Caw's tail as an item, and you play that, and you attach that to Caw, and now Caw does a little extra stuff. But yeah, I think Shere Khan can win really quickly. If you're going against Shere Khan, especially in a 1v1, you're going to have to be on him constantly. I think Shere Khan's the first villain in the game who can literally not do anything if you fate him enough. I had enough fate and fire tokens on my board at one point where I literally could not do a single thing on my turn, and it was absolutely miserable. Shere Khan can become an absolutely miserable experience if the person you're going against really fates you a lot, really wants to make sure you don't get that win. And it feels pretty bad. Alright, the next villain I have on this list is, we're going back to Evil Comes Prepared, which is Yzma, which I actually expected her to be higher on this list. But no, Yzma's actually lower than I thought. And it's also because she's another villain who she can win in like 2 turns if she starts with enough power. So Yzma, I wish she was better, but she has the really unique mechanic of, she has 16 cards in her fate deck instead of 15, and she splits them up into 4 piles, even piles, above each one of her locations. Kuzco is hidden in one of those, and she has to find Kuzco throughout those with all of her effect cards. When she finds them, she has to defeat them. Yeah, Yzma has a decent amount of effect cards that could help her go through her deck, but she also has a lot of bad fate cards in her deck. Specifically the kids like Tico and Chacha, who, I think that's their names, or Chaka. I think it's Tico and Chaka. You have to defeat them before other heroes. Strange how you have to kill kids before anybody else, even a talking, egotistical llama. And then even On the Run, which can shuffle Kuzco back into the Fate deck and shuffle them all together and completely re-hide them. But you have to defeat him using Kronk. That's the thing. Now you're supposed to find Kronk, use the dagger, but Kronk can actually become a hero. He can actually betray you. Every time you move Kronk, or if a fate card called the Path of Righteousness is played on you, 1 or 2 power will be placed on Kronk. When Kronk gets 3 power, he moves to the top of your board and he becomes a hero, and now you're going to have to either defeat him with allies to bring him back down, or you're going to have to play Right Hand Man or the Path That Rocks to keep him from becoming, a hero. But yeah, you just search through the deck, find Kronk, play Kronk, defeat Kuzco. She can win fast, or she can never win at all, because you'll just have terrible luck. Alright. So, I'm actually running out of time here, so I'm going to have to start going through these a little bit faster. So, we're going to talk about these next 2 villains at the same time, because they are the same, and that is both versions of Captain Hook, which I'm pretty sure are tied. Just a second. Alright, I am back. So, Captain Hook and Captain Hook Introduction to Evil are in the same spot. They definitely like normal Captain Hook way, way, way more, by a landslide, way more than this version of Captain Hook. Because this version of Captain Hook just pisses me off. Like, this version of Captain Hook is so unbelievably unnecessary, it sickens me. So, normal Captain Hook. He has to play the Neverland map to unlock the Hangman's Tree, and find and play Peter Pan by going through his fate deck. Peter Pan is also is forced out. If somebody reveals him during a fate action, they must play Peter Pan. So people are also... Captain Hook kind of has security until he finds Peter Pan, because people aren't going to want to fate you because of the chance of them finding Peter Pan and needing to play him, because that would suck for them. Captain Hook Introduction Evil takes a much more simple but super unnecessary and annoying approach, where Captain Hook can play the map to just straight up find Peter Pan, but the Hangman's Tree doesn't even start locked. Captain Hook can just straight up play Peter Pan by finding the Neverland map, But then you have to get rid of the Neverland map to defeat Peter Pan. It just doesn't make any sense. It's a lot less thematic than the original Captain Hook, and you know what? I don't even want to talk about it. Worst card in this Fate deck is TikTok, because it makes you... Because not only is it a shitty app, but at the same time, it also makes Captain Hook discard his whole hand. That is... And we're also going to talk about the next two villains by themselves, because they're the rest of the Introduction to Evil sets, both Ursulas. And I think both Ursulas are pretty tied for difficulty. So I do like the concept of original Ursula, but she's not that fun to play. But, so regular Ursula, you have to play the Trident and the Crown. You can play them anywhere. And I'm saying that because that's going to come in Introduction to Evil, how Ursula plays differently. You can play the Trident and the Crown anywhere on your board. You're going to want to play it to the lair, because you need the Trident and the Crown at the lair to win. That's how you win. But you have to defeat King Triton with binding contracts to defeat him. So Ursula was the original villain who didn't have a vanquish action on her board. Instead, she attached binding contracts to heroes, which would name a location, and when a hero is moved to that location of the binding contract attached to them, the hero would be defeated. Worst card in our Fate deck's definitely Ariel, and I think Introduction to Evil's Fate deck, I think Ariel's still Ursula's worst card, but Ursula Introduction to Evil takes away the whole I have to attach a binding contract to a hero to defeat them thing. Instead, she makes binding contracts give a vanquish action to the location that they're at. And I think they did Introduction to Evil Ursula better. However, the thematicness of Introduction to Evil Ursula kind of went down, because Ursula is also the only villain in the game, at least the original one, who doesn't have a removable lock token. She changes her form. She's either a human or octopus, and that switches the lock token based on which form she's in. And that's kind of how you can... I think Introduction to Evil Ursula is just a little bit more difficult, because you can't guarantee a win, and you also have to play the Trident and the Crown to specific locations. With normal Ursula, you can guarantee a win by locking the Trident and the Crown in that location. But yeah, those are the Ursulas. And getting into our next villain, we have Syndrome. So, Syndrome is really easy in hindsight, because you could blow through them, but if people fate you a lot, and I mean a lot, you kind of actually just can't win. So, Syndrome is a whole process, and his rules are written... I think he's the worst written character in the whole game. Like, his rules don't make sense. Like, I had to look up on Wikipedia as far as rules and stuff. But basically, he starts the game out with Omnidroid version 8 at No Man is an Island, his second location. And you have to defeat a hero with it to destroy it. Then you have to play a Major Modifications card to make Major Modifications, so you can bring out Omnidroid 9, and you have to discard it. Defeat a hero with Omnidroid 9, that helps you find the remote. Then Omnidroid version 10 comes out once you discard 3 Major Modification cards, and you have to get rid of all of those at the same time. Play the remote, play the Omnidroid version 10. It's going to start at the top of your board at the city, and you're going to have to play the remote there, activate it to destroy the Omnidroid version 10 to win. Now, the problem with that is you're going to have the remote out, and the second somebody sees that remote, all hell breaks loose, and they will start fading you. And the remote will be taken by heroes when they're played. It'll be tossed around, and Syndrome also cannot have a single hero on his board to win. So he has to have the Omnidroid version 10 defeated, and no heroes on his board. So if a hero takes the remote while the Omnidroid version 10 is out, the Omnidroid version 10 will actually move to that hero's location on the bottom of your board now, and you can use that to defeat a hero, and it won't be discarded. And it's kind of just a battle, like a back and forth. You know, they're passing around the remote, and you're trying to destroy heroes and stuff. And Syndrome can be fun, but he can also be really boring. I'm mostly on the side of boring most of the time I play him. But yeah, it's kind of just that back and the forth at the end with all the heroes. If people start fading you a lot, that can make it pretty difficult. But most of the time, I blow through Syndrome pretty fast. I think he's pretty quick to win, but with that whole I can't win if there's any heroes on my board thing, that could be pretty difficult. All right, getting to our next villain, we are finally getting to another Despicable Plots villain, and that is Lady Tremaine. So super fun to play. At least sometimes. Other times she could be really miserable to play. So Lady Tremaine is another process. She's kind of like Jafar, where she just has to play a bunch of specific stuff to win. So Lady Tremaine has to get one of the ugly stepsisters on the board, either Anastasia or Gisela. She has to get the ball gown version of them to play on top of the other one. So now they're in their ball gown dress. She has to play the invitation from the king to find the prince and unlock the ballroom. And she has to play the wedding bells to marry the prince and one of the stepsisters while they are in the ballroom. So it's a whole process. You have to play all those cards. Definitely play Lucifer to protect all your items so Jack doesn't, discard them or anything. But where Lady Tremaine's difficulty comes in, because she can get all that stuff out pretty fast, if you're lucky. And it's fun, getting the sister over there into the ballroom and then, playing all that stuff and, protecting all your cards with Lucifer, making it indestructible. So the problem lies with the Fairy Godmother. Definitely Lady Tremaine's worst card, which Fairy Godmother finds Ball Gown Cinderella and plays her. So yes, there is Cinderella and there's Ball Gown Cinderella. Now normally, Ball Gown Cinderella can't be played unless normal Cinderella is on the board. However, Fairy Godmother completely ignores that rule and she just plays Ball Gown Cinderella. Now, you can win if Ball Gown Cinderella is on your board. However, that would mean you would already have to have a Wicked Stepsister in the room, in the ballroom. If you don't, you can't win. You have to defeat Ball Gown Cinderella. You have to, and then once you defeat Ball Gown Cinderella, you have to find and play both glass slippers, which just keep you from winning the game, period. And you have to get rid of them with Lady Tremaine's cane, which if you activate it, you destroy a glass slipper. And that's even... And then there's also Fairy Godmother's ability, which you could just trap her. But Fairy Godmother's ability is also really bad too. When Fairy Godmother's out, only fate cards can move allies. So Fairy Godmother's just really bad. And if you get Fairy Godmother on your board, it's going to be really hard to come back unless you already have an ally in the ballroom and it stays there. But if I don't have an ally in the ballroom, pretty much every time the Fairy Godmother's been played on me, even if I was close to winning, I never came back from it. Fairy Godmother can absolutely just destroy every hope you have of winning, unless you're going against a villain who is significantly more difficult than you to win with. Alright, so we're finishing off the Sugar and Spike box with King Candy. King Candy's one of our definitely way more difficult villain than I expected him to be. But that comes in his complexity. So he is the newest, very unbeginner-friendly villain. Do not play him if you're a beginner at all. But he is the only villain that doesn't have 4 locations. He has one singular location, and it is in a figure-8 racetrack. And you basically move 1 to 4 action spaces, and you do the action that you're on, behind you, and in front of you. So King Candy's kind of racing around. Now, his whole goal is he has to beat Vanellope in a race. So to do that, you have to find Ralph's hero medal, find Wreck-It Ralph, defeat Wreck-It Ralph. Then when you do that, you find Vanellope, you have to attach a glitch to her, and that initiates the race. You place King Candy and Vanellope's racer token on the starting space, and you have to make it around the board before she does. At the beginning of each turn, a card will be drawn, and she will move the number of spaces equal to that card's cost plus 2. There's also a lot of fake cards that you can waste if you fake King Candy. If you fake King Candy before the big race, you can actually waste a lot of his cards, so don't do that, because a lot of his fake cards actually revolve around moving the racer token. But I think the problem with King Candy, and my personal problem with playing him, is the mapping of the actions they have. Like, he has 3 fate actions, but 2 of them are on top of his board and can easily be covered up by heroes. And then the 3rd fate action is way at the very end of the track on the bottom, which it takes you the longest time to get to. So if you need to fate somebody, most of the time you just can't do it. There's also his Vanquish action. I think he only has 1 Vanquish action, and Vanquishing is sometimes a big part, especially at the beginning with Wreck-It Ralph. And Vanquishing action is also way at the end where that fate action is. So it's also pretty hard to kill heroes. I'd say the mapping could have definitely been way better with King Candy, but you know what? It's okay. He's still fun to play. Worst hero card in his fate deck, probably the Metroid-looking lady. I forget her name. She has a very long name. She's pretty bad. And also, what is it? Is it the unfinished level? I'm pretty sure it's pretty bad. I don't know. A lot of King Candy's fake cards kind of just meshed together for me. I don't know why. But we're getting into the newest best villain, and that is Oogie Boogie. Now, Oogie Boogie's whole if you win with him completely depends on what you roll on the dice, obviously. But so Oogie he starts the game with Santa, who is a card labeled prisoner, on the board, and Oogie Boogie has to play 4 Imposter Sandy Clauses to Santa Claus. Now, to do that, you play it if you roll a 7 or greater on the dice. You attach that Imposter Sandy Clause to Sandy Claus, and then once you get 4 on there, you discard them, find Jack Skellington, then you have to defeat Jack Skellington to win. So Oogie Boogie is really fun. The dice mechanic is really fun. They even have dice sculpted from the movie, which is really freaking cool. But yeah, I think Oogie Boogie can be slow, depending on what you're drawing in at the same time. If you're missing a lot of your dice rolls, Oogie Boogie can be a slog to get through. He could be really slow, and I think that's where most of his difficulty comes in. It's just how slow he could be if you're getting bad dice rolls. But still, super fun villain. I think it's the best villain they've produced in years. I think he's the best villain that they've produced since Perfectly Wretched came out. Because I think Despicable Blots, Bigger and Badder, Sugar and Spite, and Introduction to Evil, and pretty much all the Star Wars sets just didn't do it as good as Oogie Boogie did. Since Perfectly Wretched, because Perfectly Wretched is the best set. Fight me. So we're going back to we're finishing off Despicable Plots actually by talking about the Horned King, with the coolest miniature in the house. So Horned King's whole thing is he has to spread his army all across his realm. By doing that, he has to find the cauldron, and he has to flip over the cauldron. Now, there's multiple ways he could find the cauldron, but the main way is playing the Show Me the Black Cauldron card to find it. Then you'll have to activate it to flip it over, or play Our Hour Has Arrived. And once you flip that over, you can now start paying 2 power at the beginning of each turn to swap one of your Ancient Soldier cards with a, what are they called? Oh my god, I'm having a brain moment. Cauldron Born. That's what they're called, Cauldron Born. And once you have a Cauldron Born at each location, you win. However, Horned King definitely has a bit of a struggle with power, and you can kind of feel it, because all of his Ancient Soldiers cost 3. He doesn't have the easiest way of gaining power. You actually find that you start using his location that gives you 3 power. You come to find that you start using that less and less the longer the game goes on, because Morva and the dungeons are just better locations in my opinion. But, you know, that's a talk for another day. I'm just kind of putting these ways to go. But yeah, definitely the worst fake card in his deck is definitely Gurgi's Sacrifice, who can flip over to Cauldron. And not only does flipping over to Cauldron mean that you can no longer swap out Ancient Soldiers with card guards, but it also means that you can no longer or it means that at the beginning of each of your turns, you now have to discard a card guard. Which definitely sucks. Discarding a card guard definitely sucks, because, you know, you need at least 4 of them on your board to win, and there's only 1 left over at the end of that. He only has 5 total in his deck. I'm getting distracted trying to put all these away. Just kind of rambling. Another bad card in his deck is definitely Fluter Flam, who can move all allies to his location. Somebody's going to play him most of the time to Morva, and he moves all allies to his location. And yes, Cauldron Born are allies, so they will be zooming right to his location. So our next villain I have here is we're finally getting to Perfectly Wretched with Pete. Now, Pete has the title of Most Chaotic Board by the end of the game. You're going to have pretty much almost half of his deck at least out on his board at the end of the game. Now, Pete has the super fun goal of having 4 goals. He has 5 goals total, 4 of which are randomly chosen and 1 placed at each location. And you have to complete all 4 of them to win. is definitely easier said than done. It's not like he's a super difficult villain, but I definitely think he's more difficult than all of the villains previously. I mean, he can be a difficult villain. It really depends on the placement of the goals and which of the goals you got. Definitely worse cards in his fate deck. Definitely Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse, the two mice. Because Mickey keeps you from doing goals, and Minnie Mouse discards stuff that you really need. Which, is unfortunate. But yeah, each of his goals, he has the power play, spend 6 power in 1 turn. You can use the bandits to do that. You have to be at that location. Win big, gain 4 power from play a game at that location, which is my least favorite goal. Strike it rich, which you have to have 3 items at at that location. Then you have his 2 ally goals, which is rule the realm, which is have more allies than heroes at each location, and round up, which is have 10 strength and allies at that location. But yeah, overall, he's really fun, and you're going to be playing cards constantly. So many freaking cards on your board at once. It's going to be insane, and it's going to look super chaotic and fun. So yes, he is the easiest in the Perfectly Wretched box, in my opinion, but that doesn't stop him from being difficult. Okay, the next villain I have here is finishing off the Wicked to the Core box, and that is Hades. Now, Hades, even though he's definitely the easiest villain to understand, in my opinion, for beginners in this set, because he mostly just introduces to you the move, item, and ally action. He's definitely the slowest villain with the most stuff you can do against him. So, Hades needs to have 3 Titans at Mount Olympus. And to do that, you have to play a Titan. They always start at the Underworld, which is, of course, on the opposite end of your board for Mount Olympus, and you have to move them all the way over. Each Titan has their own ability, which you probably will never use, except Pyros. And Argus is really good. Argus is the best Titan. But Hades has a mechanic where his Titans can become trapped. And when you trap a Titan, or when your opponent traps a Titan, you flip it to the side, and that Titan can no longer be moved or used for your goal, and their ability is ignored. They can't be used for everything. They're essentially just not even on your board, and you have to untrap them to win. But yeah, super fun. But definitely a slower villain. His Fate deck, he has a lot of bad cards in his Fate deck, like Hera traps a Titan when she's played or moved to a location with a Titan. Hercules can keep Titans from moving. Any Titans that move into Zeus's location can be trapped. Lightning Bolt traps all Titans at a location. It's just constantly getting trapped, and you have a lot of cards to entrap Titans. I would say if a Titan's at Mount Olympus and it becomes trapped, but you still, that's the only Titan you have there, I would say wait to untrap it. Just untrap all your Titans at once and hope you win. Hope they don't draw another card. Alright, we're finishing off another set here, and that is Worst Takes It All. We're finally talking about Jafar, which I actually did not expect to be this high on my list, but he is. So Jafar, definitely by a landslide the most difficult villain in the green box, I can tell you that much. He is pretty difficult to win with, but mostly because he just takes a while. So Jafar introduces the Hypnotize mechanic, which is his secondary way of defeating heroes. Yes, he does have the Vanquish action. But Jafar first has to start the game out by finding the Scarab Pendant, which not only does that unlock the Cave of Wonders, but now, as long as it's on your board, you can also draw 5 cards at the end of your turn, which is a really good way of getting through cards. Jafar's just so fun. But anyway, I'm not going to be talking about that. I'm talking about how difficult he is. So after you find the Scarab Pendant and unlock the Cave of Wonders, you now have to find and play the Lamp, which can only be played to the cave. And the Lamp finds Genie, and you have to play the Hypnotize card on Genie, which, you pay power equal to the hero's strength, and you move that hero to the bottom of your board, and they are now under your control as an ally. You got to do that to the Genie, while also moving the Lamp to the other side of your board, all the way to the Palace. Worst cards in his Fate deck, definitely Jasmine. No, not Jasmine, what am I saying? Aladdin and Abu are probably his worst cards. But I don't think Jafar's Fate deck is actually all that bad, if I'm being completely honest. He has one of the less brutal Fate decks. Oh my god. I put a villain away that I didn't talk about yet. But we are now finishing off Evil Comes... Oh no! We are finishing off Evil Comes Prepared with Scar, which has the goal where you just have to decimate everything in your path. So Scar has a succession pile, which he starts by defeating Mufasa. He doesn't start the game until he finds and defeats Mufasa. He has many ways of which he can get heroes out on his board. The primary example is Long Live the King, which lets him go through his deck, and he then chooses a hero to play out of the top 4 cards of his Fate deck, if there is any. And you gotta use that to find Mufasa, and when you find Mufasa and defeat Mufasa, your succession pile starts. Now you have to defeat heroes and put them in your succession pile up until you get 15 strength. And when you start your turn with 15 strength of your succession pile, you win. Scar is super fun. I always have such a good time playing Scar. For the most part, he could have used one less Hakuna Matata card, but yeah, Scar. You just go in and you play all your allies and you kill all the heroes, and it's just super fun. It's just really fun. I tend to like because Marvel has a defeat hero villain and Star Wars has a defeat heroes villain, and they're all like my favorite villains to play. Scar's my second favorite villain to play. I really like the defeat hero goals for some reason. I don't know why, but okay. So the next villain we're talking about is the villain I already put away, but that is Lotso, and being that he is my least favorite villain to play, I can see why I forgot about him. So Lotso, oh god, poor Lotso. So he has a pretty thematic goal of having to have Buzz Lightyear, whether on his Guardian side or his villain side, or I mean his under control side if he's under Lotso's control, at the Caterpillar Room, as well as all 4 of Lotso's heroes in his Fate deck at 0 strength. Which is way easier said than done. Lotso has, I want to call it really a power struggle, but it is kind of a power struggle. He definitely needs a lot of money, but his Fate deck is the most brutal Fate deck in the game. It pretty much resets him at every turn. Almost every card you could play against Lotso from his Fate deck pretty much does something to make him take a couple extra turns to recuperate from. I'm not even going to get into his Fate deck, because if I had to tell you what card was the most brutal in his Fate deck, I could name most of them, probably. I could probably talk to you about most of them, but I'm running out of time, so we ain't going to do that. I don't even want to talk about them now. But yeah, you have to defeat heroes, play effect cards, get them to 0 strength. The hardest one that's going to be for is Rex. Rex is definitely most difficult to get to 0 strength, even though he has the lowest strength already. But, he can't be touched if anything is in his location, so that's the problem there. And then you have to also move them all the way to the Caterpillar Room, but all of your effect cards just either remove 0 strength tokens or just straight up discard them, and you have to go out of your way to find them again and do it all again. It's just super freaking annoying and tedious. But yeah, Lotso is definitely not as difficult as these next 2. I think Lotso is definitely a little quicker than these 2 if he's left untouched. So the next villain we're talking about here, our second most difficult villain to win with, is Cruella de Vil. Now, obviously the last villain was Mother Gothel, but I have done many games where it's just straight up Cruella de Vil versus Mother Gothel, and pretty much 90% of the time Cruella de Vil ends up winning that game. So even though in hindsight Cruella might seem more difficult to win with than Mother Gothel, Cruella simply is just the quicker villain to win with. Cruella has less in her Fate deck to go against her, and Mother Gothel has, one of the more brutal Fate decks in the game. And even though I'm probably one of the best Mother Gothel players out there, at least I've been told, and do really good, and a lot of my friends refuse to let me play Mother Gothel because they know I'll probably win, I still think Mother Gothel's the most difficult villain to win with. She's the most hated in the community because of how difficult she is. She's, But that's all coming back to Cruella right now, because I'm just saying how, surprisingly, Cruella de Vil's just a little bit easier to win with than Mother Gothel's. Now, Cruella also is pretty slow to win with. So you have to get 99 puppies with her, which, you have to find the puppies. Hopefully you find all 4 of your 22 tokens, but if you find only 11s, it's going to take you a really long time. And you're going to have to capture them at the tokens locations with your 2 allies, Horace and Jasper. Also use the Roadster to move around the puppy tokens and stuff. Play all your effect cards, or just use Horace to find puppy tokens and whatnot and capture them all. And hopefully you get up to 99. The bad cards in her Fate deck, definitely Perdita and Flew the Coop, which just take captured puppy tokens and put them back on your board. That can be pretty bad. I'm pretty sure Flew to Coop actually just straight up removes them back to the supply of puppy tokens that aren't even on your board. But yeah, I definitely say Cruella de Vil. Slow villain to win with, difficult villain to win with. But she's not as difficult as the next villain we're talking about, which I already kind of talked about, which is Mother Gothel. My favorite villain to play, but still the most difficult villain to win with. Kind of rarely do I win with Mother Gothel, even if I literally get up to 10 trust multiple times. I'm always brought back down with one of her effect cards that can, get rid of trust, or, I do everything I can. I play literally every card. Like, I've cycled through my deck. Me and my buddy Ben that I play Villainous with, we literally played a 2-hour long game with Cruella and Mother Gothel. We've both shuffled each other's fate decks, each other's villain decks multiple times, and he ended up winning in that. And that was the definitive, we all used every single thing we had, every fate card we had, and that was the final deciding game that finally showed me that Cruella de Vil is easier to win with than Mother Gothel. Because if me and him didn't play that game, and if I didn't play multiple games of Mother Gothel versus Cruella, I would have probably put Cruella as the top most difficult villain to win with instead of Mother Gothel. But I think, I have definitive proof now that Mother Gothel is definitely the most difficult villain to win with. Her fate deck it hurts. Mother Gothel's so fun. You gotta keep Rapunzel from getting to the tower, and she moves at the end of every turn as a tug-of-war game, keeping her away from the tower, which is super fun to maintain Rapunzel at all times. Get trust from her. You got to get 10 trust to win, which is way easier said than done, but there's so many fun combinations you can do with items and effect cards. The hairbrush is her best card, surprisingly. But then her fate deck comes in and just gets rid of all of her trust, but she's still super fun to play, super difficult to win with. A lot of people don't like her, especially not beginners. And I can say without question that she is the most difficult Disney villainous villain to win with. But thank you everybody so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.